That was awesome. People get ready, there's a change coming. That song is If You Don't Get Stuck in the Literal. We Unitarians can get stuck in the literal. And we say that the fundamentalists get stuck in the literal, but we get stuck in the literal too. That song's about hope. And anything, especially in this time, that gives me hope, I'm going to play it and I'm going to sing it. Because we need some hope right now, don't we? It's been a heck of a year and a half in this country. For me particularly, it's been a heck of a last several weeks with what happened at the Capitol Gazette building and the loss of one of the members of my congregation in that tragic shooting that you all have heard about. It was national news, of course. And I pride myself on being a minister of inspiration and hope. But it really is hard certain days to get into it. In my heart, I believe that we should all follow our bliss, that we must seek not to die slowly, but as Thoreau said, to suck the marrow out of life. I believe that in my heart. Some days are easier than others. When it's 75 and sunny, all the bills are paid, and I still have extra money. But days like this, with a group from Charlottesville and all of these hate groups coming to the D.C. area, I told somebody before church they picked the wrong area to come to. And my work in Charlottesville, don't bring that nonsense here. And how we're struggling, it's almost like we're living in relativism. And relativism is good in some sense with religion and understanding that there's a lot of gray areas. But morally, you have to have, you can't have relativism. You have to have certain ideas that are just right and wrong. And we can't play with that. And hate is wrong, I don't care how you slice it. And love is love, I don't care how you slice it. Hate erases and love embraces. That's your litmus test. It's just that simple. And so I want to suck the marrow out of life. I want to live a fantastic life. I want to ask you, how are you living this morning? Are you finding amidst the ugliness the bits of joy? I want to say that to you. But I understand that there are a lot of people who are trying to find their way through this life in all the wrong ways. And this sermon is really about being understood and learning how to understand. And that's my message. I always say to my congregants, if you don't reach out, you're going to act out. And my ministry is all about emotional literacy, learning how to express your underlying feelings and needs. That's one aspect of it. Mental illness is another aspect that we have to face in this country. Another incident in Seattle just happened. People are crying out for understanding. People are saying, I want to be seen, I want to be heard, I want to be felt. I want you to see my full humanity. And some people do it the wrong way, especially when they're mentally ill. We have to protect them. We are an evolving species. And in our process of evolution and waking up, we are seeking to understand who we are, our relationship to this evolution. So understanding has to do with the evolution of our consciousness, our awareness, and to be understood has to do with the evolution of our relationships. The former has to do with the internal quest for knowledge of the self in relationship to and with the cosmos, understanding, as I said, why we're here and perhaps what is my purpose And the latter has to do with being seen and heard and respected and loved. It's just that simple. One has to do with curiosity, learning more about myself, having experiences. And the other has to do with vulnerability, being able to effectively open myself in relationships. But both have to do with the evolution of our species, because everything that's playing out in our world today is a result of those two things: understanding and being understood. I like to go back to the book of Genesis, not taking it literally, of course. Genesis meaning the beginning. Most of us have heard or read parts of this book. It's about the creation of humanity. It doesn't make sense if taken literally, but metaphorically, if taken in the context of the way Martin Buber would look at it, a theologian. It has everything to do with what I'm talking about. In the beginning, humans realized they were naked. The old story says they gained knowledge of good and evil. Look between the lines in this allegorical story. Human beings waking up. Adam and Eve realized they were naked. They were vulnerable and fragile creatures. At some point, humans woke up and realized, hey, I'm exposed in a very big and scary world. But they also said, hey, there's a lot of excitement out here, a lot of things to explore and do. And we started taking chances. And for a long time, before we really woke up, we did what nature programmed us to do. Like most animals, we were communal creatures. We lived in packs. We hunted and gathered. We mostly followed the alphas, male or female, in the group. But as we began to stand up and our brains began to grow, somewhere in that process, we became more and more curious. What's out there? The forbidden fruit. We wanted to understand more. And that's where we are today in our continual quest for knowledge. It's a virtue and a vice. Our curiosity allows us to know, allows us to do many exciting things, but we also use it in a way that's exploitive to other human beings. Carl Jung talks about individuation, to distinguish from other things, to be distinguished from other things. That's what we wanted, to break from the pack, not to feel constricted and controlled. It was this anthropological and psychological break from being collectivist in nature to more individualistic that we began yearning as a species to understand and to be understood. And this is where freedom, mental, physical, spiritual freedom, became paramount. It became the overriding effort of our lives, to be curious and to explore and to discover. For me, is the ultimate quest for us, as it was for our ancestors, as I said, where freedom is paramount. And that's why there's so much suffering. The Buddha would agree. That's where there's so much war and violence, from the attachments that we develop in our quest. All of these clashing and colliding realities of people and ideas and dreams of what free means. Others, whether it be with physical muscle or some sort of other power, using it to subdue and force people to live within their dream of what the world or life should be. But history has shown you cannot control another human being, take their freedom away for long before they will fight and fight and fight, and they will die, and their children's children will die for that quest for freedom. Because freedom means you have the space to emerge. That's what the immigrants are crying for. Freedom. Not to be under some totalitarian regime, some oppressive country or leader, but freedom to be seen and heard, to be observed, to live. But community and keeping organization is also important. That tension. That I need to be all I can be, but I also have a social contract to honor. And so there's this tension between individual needs and desires versus groupthink, and it's a very difficult thing to navigate. But the point is that if I am to understand who I am, I must grapple and be honest with the fact that I want to be understood and I want to understand. And there is a certain restlessness inside of all of us as a result of that. We are all restless souls, wanting to find meaning and to have a good life. And that's why the poem I read is a bit paradoxical. I didn't read it, I'm sorry, Karen read it. Die Slowly, it's a bit paradoxical. Trying to live the life you want to live, over and against trying to be a good father or mother or family member or citizen or human being, it creates a lot of gray areas. It's hard to decide what to do. Some of you probably want to go downtown today. Hard to decide, when should I do, what should I, I'm always conflicted. We're conflicted creatures. The poem that was shared, it's true, we must go against the grain, throw caution to the wind, and live our dreams and all that good stuff, but that's not always possible given certain realities. Not possible for some folks given their economic situation or geographical location or where they are on Maslow's hierarchy. So how do we subdue that restless soul that gnaws at us and haunts us as we sleep? We don't. We recognize that voice and that it will always be us no matter what stage we are in life. We realize that we are a product of the cosmos. The cosmos, a creative and expanding universe of possibilities. It never ends. It's full of paradox and contradiction, of clashing and colliding realities. We are it, and it is us. And therefore, this restlessness is a part of being alive and awake as a human being. It's a godlike responsibility. But there will be music left unplayed when we take our last breath in this physical form. I like to say we can't do it all in one lifetime, but thank goodness there's reincarnation, in my humble opinion. So what can we do to make a difference? We do what we can do. And that's enough. You follow your goals and your dreams as long as you have the heart to do so. But when the fire goes out, be willing to let it go. No regrets. I did all I could do. Because it is really the journey, not the destination, that makes for a good life. The journey of understanding and being understood that makes for a good life. It's the process. And in my own evolution as a human being, I've discovered that, sometimes my ideas, I can't have my way all the time. I have to let go sometimes and follow the social contract. I can't always be the center of the universe. Darn it. Sometimes I am called to lead, sometimes I'm called to follow, sometimes I'm called to get out of the way. Wisdom knows the difference. Look to your higher S self. I like to say the God of your understanding. Meditate on it, then make your decision, and move on in faith, hope, and love. We are people of curiosity and vulnerability. People who want to understand and be understood. And because I know this, even as I sit and mourn everything that's happening in this country, what happened in my town, I say to you, we still must travel lightly on this earth with a forgiving heart. Because as I step back and look at the tangled web we weave in this long waking up process, I realize the complexity. So we must walk humbly on this planet, knowing that we are conflicted and complex creatures, full of contradiction and paradox. And we must live and lean into this ambiguity, knowing that every person you see, I don't care how rich or poor they are, they have the same desire to be seen and heard and understood and loved. That every person, save those who are mentally deficient, want to be free to explore and grow their soul. And so this restlessness should call within you compassion and patience. And that every bad thing that happens cannot be easily labeled and filed away. So it's my belief as an emotional literacy minister that teaching this idea, this way of being, is more sensitive and elastic, a way of seeing the world that will perhaps slow down our actions and reactions. Maya Angelou said we must listen more, think more, and read more, to pause and reflect before deciding the fate of other peoples and nations. I know you know this. Unitarian Universalists are thoughtful people. But pausing and reflecting helps us to recognize within ourselves our own vulnerabilities, our own struggles, our own needs. To look at it, to face it, to talk to it, to make peace with it so that we don't project it out. And Carl Jung always talks about the shadow and how really the world is this big projection of the ugliness inside of people. And all of the love we see is a projection too. It's a both-and scenario. And then maybe if we can get beyond our judgments, maybe become more elastic and sensitive and compassionate, we really can, at every level, create systems that are more equitable and just. As Dr. King said, invest in people, not in things. And this is my definition of beloved community. Now, I have the long-term view of beloved community that one day that we all hope for, but I actually have a short-term vision of beloved community too. Because beloved community is every time you have a moment where you realize, I'm human, I'm vulnerable. Where you appreciate what is good and holy in your life. Where you have that moment of understanding. And I know you've all felt it and experienced it. I have. And I tell you, for me and my tradition, it just makes me want to shout, yeah! I'm not really a quiet, expressive person. I'm like, oh, yeah! But for some of you, they're tears. For some of you, the chills. For some of you, it's just the power that cannot be explained, gives you the peace that surpasses all understanding. That is beloved community. You are experiencing a foretaste of glory divine. Suck the marrow out of it, live in it, and know it will come again. Know it will come again in your own individual life, and that it will come again in the world that we see. For indeed, we saw a foretaste of glory divine in 2008. Hallelujah. But knowing the pendulum swings, we just have to be patient, keep on keeping on, keep on hoping and praying and loving and forgiving. And it will come again. Weeping lasts for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Hold on just a little longer. Hold on just a little longer. I'm way off my script now, but that's okay. Because I'm saying what needs to be said. I said to my wife, I said, I got to say something about what's going on in this world today. And she said, it will come. It will come, and it does. It always comes. The still small voice, it always comes. I trust it. You can trust it. It has no religious label or title. It's not Christian or Buddhist. It is it. You are it. Maybe so. Amen.